Bye. You didn't hit the button.
Sorry, folks. I was still muted. I'm getting back in the swing of things. Alrighty. Good morning, USA. You're watching the Road to Concord with Professor Joe Bakanovic. Homeroom is on Rumble. You just go to Rumble, search the channels for the Road to Concord. It's one word. When you find it, you go ahead and you click follow. It might mean you got to set up an account, but it's fast, easy, and free. And if I did it, you can too. For those technologically challenged members of class, you can also catch us on Facebook, Twitch, X, Twitter, Candy Bar, and YouTube. Then you can catch the podcast after the show. It's uploaded to Podbean, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and BitChute when it works. Just look for the Road to Concord. You can go to the blog page. That's theroadtoconcord.com. That's where all your show notes, study notes, handouts are for the class. You can email the professor at joe@theroadtoconcord.com. He's a little slow, but he claims he's been caught up, so we'll see. He will email you eventually, regardless. If you find our classes helpful, please click the thumbs up, like, follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff, and share with those you think could benefit from it. We run completely on donations, just even $5, cup of coffee, couple Slim Jims, whatever you'd like to donate, it'd be fantastic. Just when you do share the show, just warn them. Warn those poor people, bless their hearts. Show them that Joe is an acquired taste. And we mean
it. Charlie, she's better at this than you are. All right, guys. Charlie's not with us today. His wife tried to kill him on the internet yesterday. He had a minor medical procedure that and he's still laid up because I from what I understand from talking to him on the phone, the anesthesia was not kind to him, so he's got some after effects from the anesthesia. But his wife posted up there on several pages that our congregation is all involved with, and made it sound like he had a major heart attack and was in heart surgery trying to save his life. So Everybody had a little scare with that. He's fine. He could use your prayers for healing though, because the anesthesia apparently hasn't let go of him. Good morning, folks. Welcome to the Road to Concord. I am Joe Bakanovic, your professor. Hopefully you didn't hear that just now, but if you did, I tried to mute the computer. I never know what comes across on StreamYard when we're broadcasting. It's Friday. It used to be Once Upon a Time Fallacy Friday. This is the day where we discuss logic, natural law, natural rights, and the founding fathers. We're going to be getting back to that here in the near future. But before I get there, I just want to have a little bit of a rant with you today. I ran across a few things in the news. I'm mostly on the Gateway Pundit here looking at these, and these have all come across in the last few days. And we're just going to look at the headlines. It says a stunning poll finds that most Democrats believe Joe Biden left the U.S. border open by accident. Has anybody ever noticed that the left has programmed its people to accept, oh, it's a mistake, as an excuse? Well, I doxed 50 million Republicans, not a single Democrat, but the IRS doxed 50 million Republicans. Oh, it's a mistake. Nothing ever happens to them. You know, I put a whole bunch of people in jail without ever charging them with anything. Oh, it was a mistake. You know, all the records for Epstein have disappeared. It was a mistake. And they buy this mess. I'm serious, folks. I have fought this for a long time. I have not liked the idea that leftism is a mental disorder. And I'm still not going to go with it's a mental disorder. But I'm going to tell you this 100% for sure. If you're a dyed-in-the-wood woke lefty, you got a spiritual disorder. That's a fact, Jack. I'm gonna go with stripes on that one. I'm gonna stick with it. You have a spiritual problem if you're a leftist. There's just no other explanation in my mind for this. Here's another one. It's all from the Gateway Pundit. Teary-eyed federal employee compares filling out Elon Musk's email to what I imagine living in North Korea to be like. For real? Honestly, is this okay? Next one. DOJ official who previously served as Mueller's spokesman resigns, citing hostile and toxic work environment. What, because you're no longer getting your way and you actually have true opposition for a change? And I don't mean the Republican Party. I mean MAGA. MAGA is not the Republican Party. MAGA is trying to take over the Republican Party, and that's got its own issues that we'll deal with later. Next story. Maine lawmaker is censured for using the birth name of a transgendered athlete in protests the state allowing male to play in girls' sports. So she gets censured for speaking the truth. Folks, we live in the days of Isaiah 5:20-21. If you don't know it, you really need to look that passage up. Next one here. Comey family member was the lead prosecutor in Epstein's case in the Southern District, New York, where files released to DOJ were heavily redacted and many are missing. That's nepotism, folks. That's the they. That's the deep state. This is disobedience and insubordination. You do this in the military, you get court-martialed. You can go to jail for this. These people need... Another story. Leftist extremism. Indiana thug arrested for threatening to, quote, gut Elon Musk and parade his corpse through the streets. Police seize AR-15 handgun and ballistic vests. I thought it was only the right that does these things. Have you ever noticed the left is always projecting on the right? We're racists, although racism seems to reside on the left. We're fascists, although the practice of fascism seems to reside on the left. We're homophobes. I don't think it's homophobic to not want my 5-year-old being force-fed transgender reading hour where they talk about sexually explicit actions between their two daddies. There once upon a time that was called perversion in this country. Comment on the board from Aaron Spikes. This is woe to those who call evil good and good evil. Yes, Isaiah 5:20-21. Folks, if it has to be quote unquote normalized, it's not normal. And homosexuality and pedophilia and transgender, all of this stuff has to be normalized. And what they're doing now is they're forcing it down our throats using the power of law and the force of government. Here's another one. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker compares Trump administration to Nazi Germany. Really? This is so far, I told you, I made no bones about this one. I was worried about Donald Trump. Still am. But so far, he has been the most transparent. This has been the most transparent presidency I can remember in my lifetime. I'm almost 60 years old. I don't remember any of them being this wide open for the people to see. That's not fascism. But the people who want to do everything in the secret and behind closed doors and in those smoke-filled rooms like the left and kick and wail and scream when the light of day is shined on their little cockroach party. More projectionism, folks. Next story, transurrection. Thousands of trans activists storm Iowa Capitol as lawmakers vote to de-recognize gender identity. That's lawlessness, folks. That's not peaceful assembly to protest your government. That's lawlessness, because if you think you're going to be able to pull a permit to storm the Capitol like this, you're not going to get a permit for that. When January 6, 2020, when the Capitol Police took down the barricades, opened the doors to the Capitol building, and waved the people in, that was called an insurrection. What the heck is this? And then here, Josh Hammer perfectly describes the judicial insurrectionists attempting to shut down the Trump administration. These radical leftists judges file more nationwide injunctions against Trump than all previous presidents combined. And yeah, that right there is part of what's got me going today. The judges. But it's not just the judges. It's the people. It's the people of America. Woke. Woke is just another word for political correctness. They changed the word. They changed it for marketing purposes. This is how progressives think and how they work. It's how they function. If you've been with us any length of time, we have discussed Edward Bernays. He worked for Woodrow freaking Wilson. There you go, Natasha. He worked for Woodrow Wilson, and he is the father of modern commercial advertising and what we call spin propaganda. He's thought of in the political world as the father of propaganda. He's the reason that you have orange. He's the reason you eat breakfast. The reason you have orange juice for breakfast, and the reason more women smoke than men. He's the reason for a lot of this stuff. It literally, it was him. So he starts this, and we call it public relations or PR and spin. It literally, this is Project Mockingbird. So when you change from political correctness to woke, that's just Project Mockingbird. And if you've been with us, Project Mockingbird is a CIA deep state program to capture the quote unquote legacy media and use them to push the state's political agenda. And for years, everybody says, well, that's just a conspiracy theory. Part of what Doge has done, what Elon Musk and his people have done, is expose that it was not a theory. Yes, it was a conspiracy. It is no longer a theory. Most of these left-wing media sources are starting to scream like banshees because their funding's being cut off, which means they're going to collapse, which means they have always been upheld by the deep state, the political left in our country, using your tax dollars. Folks, that is taking your money to politically work against you if you lean in the opposite direction. So that's part of what's going on here. Now, the snowflakes that are gobbling this up, oh, the borders were left open by an accident. Really? No. If you believe that, I'm sorry, I'm going to use some military sayings today. They're not curse words, but I'm going to use them. If you believe that the Biden administration left the borders open by accident, you are stuck on stupid. SOS. Stuck on stupid. That's willful ignorance. That is willful ignorance. Ignorance will be excused on this show. Willful ignorance will not be excused or tolerated, and it will be mocked, maligned, and ridiculed wherever it is found. because willful ignorance is a choice. It is a purposeful, intentional choice. And by ignorant, I don't mean stupid. We understand the English language in the dictionary. It means uninformed. I am ignorant about a great many things. I got no problem calling myself ignorant about those things because I don't know much about them. That's what the word means. But if you choose to be willfully ignorant, not only about something, not only will you get mocked and ridiculed for it, if you try to voice your opinion, it's not going to be respected. Not for that. Say, well, Joe, see, that's why I'm not going to talk to you. Look, if you can defend your position with logic and reason, if you can tell me why you believe what you believe, other than, well, it was a mistake, if you're intellectually honest, not only is your opinion welcomed here, it's wanted. But if you've got a problem with me not wanting to hear an uninformed, ignorant opinion, well, that's just adding to the cacophony of political noise that's in our world right now. I don't need that. Nobody needs that. Nobody should want to listen to you. And there is absolutely nothing wrong in polite society with polite people saying, I don't want to hear you ranting about your uninformed opinion. It'd be like me walking into some place that I know nothing about, computer programming. For me to go into a computer programmer's office and start telling them how they ought to do everything, they got every right in the world to tell me to shut my soup cooler, as the military would call it, your mouth. And they'd be right. And if I got offended over that, that's my problem, not theirs, because that's their world. And I really don't know. My computer programming skills ended with COBOL and Pascal. Okay, that's where I stopped. We way past that nowadays. So I'm totally ignorant of what they do. I got no business talking to them. The world needs to start learning how to not be offended at everything anymore. Grow up. These woke children, these snowflakes, are the result of social engineering. They did not the people who are wanting to be in charge of this country, they did not inherit a population that was prone to slavery. They inherited the remnant of Ephraim, and Ephraim kicks against the boards. Ephraim wants to be free. If you're not regular to this show, Ephraim is one of the leader of the northern tribes of Israel. This show has a decidedly biblical Judeo-Christian bent to it, and we try to harmonize and understand the world through the biblical lens. And if you understand that history, you know that the remnant of Ephraim, the seed of Ephraim, is in this nation nowadays. And the remnants of Ephraim, they want to be free. Now, that's a problem because they think that they're responsible for their own freedom and power and success and everything. They forget to honor Yahweh for that, but they want to be free. Well, the people trying to take over this country lament the fact that they don't have a docile, subservient population. So what they're doing is they're trying to create and import one. They're trying to use the different systems within our society to make woke children, because woke children, remember what John Dewey said, they'll learn their place in life and they won't try to think for themselves. So they won't upset the social order that they are trying to create. This is mimicked by or echoed by Hitler when he lamented the fact that he inherited Christians, weak and squishy Christians, rather than Muslims. He thought Muslims would have been a better race, or religion rather, for Germany than Christianity. And that's because a Muslim, if you tell them, hey, stand in place and die for your Fuhrer, they'll do it. They'll die to the last man, which is what Hitler always wanted his people to do. By just a quick aside, I believe it was the 13th SS Division. Yes, the SS, the Nazi elite military force. The 13th, they wore these red fez caps, even in their fighting uniforms. They were strictly an entire division of nothing but Muslims. And they were used to pacify the rebels in the Balkan areas, Yugoslavia, in parts of Greece and in that area, the Yugoslav areas, Bulgarian and all that stuff, the Balkanized areas. That division pacified the local rebels because they were absolutely brutal at it. So to some extent, the Muslim religion does align with Hitler's ideology. And that's what our political elite, self-appointed air-sipping leaders want. They want a docile society that'll just do what they're told. So this is what we're seeing in a lot of these stories that I shared with you. This is the signs of social collapse. And that's what this is. These are the precursors that you're seeing. And I don't mean the beginning of social collapse. These things happen when you're well into the social collapse. And that's what the deep state has been after for a long time. They want the system to collapse so that they can rebuild it. They're heating it up. All of the social strife in our world is, that's the Fabian Society's picture. Their stained glass picture where the two people they're heating up the globe in the furnace, and one of them's hitting it with a hammer to heat it up, cause chaos and division and strife and unrest and social decay, so that they can reshape the world closer to their heart's desire. They think they're gods. They said so. John freaking Dewey said man is his own God, and in his world, the teacher's the prophet of the new religion that he's bringing about, with man as his own God. That's the left. That's a progressive. That's part of how they think and act. Deltros asks, didn't Hitler kill himself? So they say. There's a big argument on that. That's a different show, brother. So what we have here is this woke culture, and you're in a social collapse. And we have, I found a meme, and it said that when a man has no purpose, he will entertain himself or bring about comfort, and entertain and comfort himself to idle away his time. That's where we're at right now. We're in an entertainment and comfort society. Feed them bread and circuses. Well, that's because they have no purpose in life. We, as a society, we no longer have a purpose. We used to have purpose in this society. The American way, truth, justice, the American way. Our purpose used to be business. Business was the business of America. We no longer do that. We used to have a fairly homogeneous, almost the whole nation was Judeo-Christian in some sense, or at least nominally professed to be. We've lost that focus and purpose. We have a balkanized country in an advanced state of social decay. And that's what we're seeing. Now, when you get this lack of purpose and you start entertaining and comforting yourself with stuff, that suits they's purpose, because that's a consumerist driven society. Just buy. And you might not even use the things I get caught in this all the time with my hobby. My business and hobby are one and the same. So I end up buying things that go on the shelves for years. It's wasted money. It's a habit I'm trying to break. It's a sin at the level I do it. That's licentiousness. And it's not just in the material sense, it's also in the physical sense. We start becoming hedonistic, little barbarians that do whatever feels good, do it. That's the licentious that comes from this. This is an advancing state of social collapse. And it's indicative of a few other things. You have no universal truth, which gives you no objective reality. And when you have no objective, universal truth and reality, now you got no morality, or at least no universal morality. What's true for you might not be true for me. What's right for you might not be right for me. That leads to no personal responsibility, no consequences for anything. Well, it was a mistake. So there's no consequences to these people. The one thing that I haven't seen out of Trump's administration yet? I don't see any perp walks. Nobody's being arrested for any of this yet. There is plenty of stuff that these people could start being arrested for, and they're not doing it. So if they're not arrested, prosecuted, and jailed when they're found guilty, I mean fair trials before a jury of their peers, do this right. If you don't do that, President Trump isn't doing anything but making sure that when he's gone and they steal the presidency again, they will set up a system that will never be able to be undone again. If you're going to take a shot at the king, you got to kill him. The only way to kill these people is to put them in jail. And I don't mean physically kill them. I'm not a leftist. What I mean is metaphorically. You have got to make sure you end this deep state, and you're not going to end it unless you send the fear of God into these people that they will be prosecuted and their lives destroyed. So they need to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. If the law allows 10, if they've got 5 counts and you can do 10 years per count, do it consecutively, 50 years in jail. If the law allows so much of a fine, maximum fine per account. So if you can do $10,000 per account, take 50 grand from them. You have got to, I don't care about the rest of their family. I don't. You married into this. You and your children, that's your personal responsibility has got to come back. This is going to hurt. And in a little bit, I'll get into this because I'll tell you right now, I'm leading by example, and I'll share that with you later in the show. I'm a good Marine. I'm not going to tell you, you go. I'm going to jump up and run into the face of the machine gun fire and yell, follow me. I'm going to walk the walk. So where we're at, we've got no universal truth, no objective reality, no morality, no personal responsibility, which means there's no sense of duty. There's no work ethic, just a bunch of animals that are good for nothing more than being led to the slaughter. And this is all biblical. That's what Peter said in 2 Peter, that they're just senseless animals being good for nothing but to be led to the slaughter. Coming on the board from Aaron Spikes. They're not going to eat their own, though. Oh, they've already started. Cannibalism will happen when they're no longer being fed at the public trough. They'll start eating each other, Aaron. If President Trump starts doing what he's supposed to do and start arresting some of these people. Now, I don't know if you recognize the parallels with Rome. Rome collapsed because of a social decay. It wasn't military collapse. The politics follows the society. So the society has to change before the politics change. So what happened in Rome, everybody looks at, well, they started overtaxing and they did this and they did that. That was the result of the social decay. The people had become fat and happy. That's the hard times make good men make good times make bad men make hard times. That's the cycle. Well, we're in the case of bad times because the bad men. That's how that cycle works. You start with bad times, the state of nature. That creates good men, hard men. Men create good times because they bring order to society. What happens in those good times is the men raise woke, licentious, lazy, irresponsible children who then create bad times when they're in charge and they take over from their fathers. It's the cycle over and over again. It's in the Bible. It's in history. It's everywhere. Well, that's what Rome did. And Rome was ripe for conquest, just as this nation is. And that's what they have been trying to do. They want this country ripe for conquest. And that's why we're so corrupt right now. Nobody has a sense of duty anymore or responsibility. Comment on the board from Clay Toller. Rome didn't die. It morphed into the Vatican. Nah, before the Vatican took over, Mr. Toller, Rome was attacked and killed by Islamic raiders. And then from the hordes from the north as well. Rome was crushed militarily before the Vatican took over. The Vatican moved in and took over the void that was left from other things. You'll have to look into your history of the Roman Catholic Church. It doesn't really become what you know today as the Roman Catholic Church until the beginning of the Dark Ages, which coincidentally Rome heralded in the Dark Ages. But we can get to that history on another day. So we've got a corrupt country. We have no justice. We live in the world that Isaiah, the prophet, was condemning of Israel. The judges enrich themselves and their friends at the expense of the victims in society. This is part of what Bongino's been trying to explain to people. Dan Bongino. The media keeps calling him and they're like, well, you're a political commentator. How could you possibly be neutral in the FBI? Folks, nobody in the world is neutral. Nobody. You're not neutral. We all have sides. But once upon a time, the majority of people in our country knew how to put their political opinions aside. If you're old enough to remember Walter Cronkite, how many of you know that he was a screaming far-left, radical lefty loon? If you watched Walter Cronkite growing up, if you're my age or whatever, and you can remember him, the country thought he was as neutral as they could get. He would report good and bad on both sides. You didn't see his bias that often. It was there. Let me tell you, it was there. If you know that man's history, he was very biased. But he had a job to do, and he did it. When we were in the military, when I was in the Marine Corps back in the 80s, the early 90s, we reminded each other all the time, keep your politics out of your job, do your job, keep yourself focused on what you're supposed to do. Yes, ma'am.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me he was a real journalist?
At that time, close as you can get to it, yes.
Wow.
On air. He just reported the facts: who, what, where, when, and why. So Dan Bongino has been trying to explain to people that you can do the job and keep your politics out of it. Now, it takes training to do that. That has to be trained into somebody, and it's best done while they're a child. Yes, Aaron Spikes, and that's the way it was, and that's the way it is, blah, blah, blah. Yes, that was Walter Cronkite's catch line. So you can be trained to focus on the job. These are called statesmen. The founding fathers, very opinionated. They had the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, very divisive, as you're going to see in the coming weeks. But they worked together. They had a single-minded goal or a single purpose. Now, they had different ways they wanted to do it. And in some cases, they did have different agendas that they hid. That's human nature. And they accounted for that. The founders accounted for the fact that that was going to be happening. They knew it was happening within their ranks. So they designed a system that was, constructed to put brakes on that. And ever since, the progressives, the would-be tyrants, have been lamenting that the Constitution ties their hands. Well, yes, it was designed to do that. But Dan Bongino is trying to explain to people, I can be dedicated to the ideal, not the politics. Well, the reason the left can't see this is because a progressive believes that everything is political, right down to what you do in your bedroom. Now, they'll tell the right, you got no right to legislate my private bedroom, but they think that they won't let you tell them that so you can't outlaw homosexuality. That's telling them what to do in the bedroom. But then they'll turn right around and tell you, you must accept that I'm female, even though I was born with XY chromosomes and I was born with male genitalia. Well, the hypocrisy runs amok. That's because there's no integrity in these people. They're all, if you want to use, I'll get to the comment in just a second. If you want to use a psychological term, they're all id. Me. They're all a bunch of narcissistic, self-centered little psychopaths. Deltros 1 on the board says there is no neutrality. You have to learn how to stick to the undiluted facts. Yes, but this takes training and discipline. And that's something our current younger generations lack, is discipline. And this is why the left does not understand how Dan Bongino expects to go into his job and remain politically neutral. Now, when he goes after lawbreakers, they're going to scream that it's political payback. Well, no. But they're not going to be able to see that because they're going to think, well, he's going after the left that attacked Trump, so this is payback. If you went after Trump and you broke the law in the process, that's not payback. That's the rule of law. You're just saying that I align with lawlessness, and so if you come after me, folks, that is literally the world attacking the spiritual realm. This is a spiritual battle. It is. To me, it's the only way I can rationalize this. It's the only way it works for me that the world can be harmonized under a unified code. The scientists are looking for the unified code of everything that's going to make quantum physics blend with, micro physics and all this stuff, make the whole world make sense with one pretty little equation. It's not going to happen because they've left out the part that really works. The creator, the spirit, the spark of the divine. Well, that's the only way I've been able to unify all of this stuff. So with Dan Bongino saying, let's run government with a dedication to the founding ideals, not your politics, that's a foreign concept to most people today. They don't know how to do that. We're supposed to have a sense of duty in this world. And duty, we have a duty. If you're going to be part of a law-abiding, law and order, law and justice society, you have a duty to know and understand several things. First and foremost, you have a duty to know and understand your creator. Whoever you call God, you've got a duty to know your God and what that God expects of you. Now, in the founding fathers' case, that was the God, the creator God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And that's Yahweh. That is not the God of the Muslims. Muslims claim it is, but they trace through Ishmael. The God of Ishmael is not the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So in the founding case, it's Yahweh and his son, the Messiah. And you have another duty. That's your spiritual duty. You have a civic duty, an earthly, physical duty to know and understand the law. Now, you have to understand the revealed law of your creator, which God, that's going to give you morality. But you have civic law, civil law. And that civil law is supposed, the moral duty of your creator means you're supposed to create civil laws in alignment with your moral laws. And you need to know these at all levels. You have a duty to this, local, state, and federal. That's part of the rule of law. Now, I throw this democracy thing out the window. Democracy, you can have democracy inside a dictatorship. I'm tired of that word. It is thrown around in a way and is misunderstood, and it's put up there. It's become a religious sacrament. I hate it. Democracy is nothing more that our founding fathers called it the tyranny of the masses, and that is exactly what it is. I'm going to put it in very crude, rude terms. I have 51 boys and 49 girls, and they're all gorgeous. They're all beauty queens, and we are going to vote. Should we be allowed to take whatever girl we want, whenever we want, any way we want, or not? 51 heterosexual boys, really masculine alpha types, all vote yes. 49 girls vote no. That's a democracy. And it's very moral because the majority ruled. I put it in an ugly term on purpose. That's democracy. Democracy is ugly. The progressives want you to think it's a good thing. The founding fathers flat out rejected it. They poo-pooed it as ugly as I do. Who do you think taught me that democracy should be viewed that way? I was raised in the public education system too, and I used to think it was a good thing until I met the founding fathers. They hated that idea. That's why you are in a representative republic where only one person in the federal government was elected by you and I, your local representative of the House of Congress. Everybody else was elected or appointed by higher levels of government. It was a stratified system on purpose. So we have an obligation, we have a duty to learn our laws. In our system, inherent within our system, is the duty to be informed and to participate. Informed participation. That is a duty in this system. And because most of us are licentious and all we want is our bread and circuses, we won't take up that duty. Now, how many of you have ever watched the movie or TV show now, Starship Troopers? You know, service is going to lead to citizenship. They had the idea in that movie that unless you are a citizen, you should not be allowed to vote. Why? Because if you're a citizen, if you show that you will take on this duty to stay informed and to act as a patriot, not a political partisan, but as a patriot for the good of society, the whole of society, then you deserve citizenship and the rights to vote. The founding fathers argued over this. They wanted to limit who was allowed to vote. At one point, they argued that you shouldn't be allowed to vote unless you own property. We will get into this in later shows. Toward the second half of the show, I'll explain. I'm going to run home to mama, and I'm going to get back to basics here. And I'm quoting a movie. I'm quoting a line out of Hunt for Red October. So going to go home to mama. I'm going to go back to home base, and refocus what I've started to do on this show. But what we have to do is understand that we have an inherent duty to know and understand our system of law. The founding fathers, if you were a soldier in the time of war, if you owned property and a few other very few things, that's who was supposed to be allowed to vote. In other words, if you did not have skin in the game, they did not want you voting because they didn't trust you. The average person is willfully ignorant. They knew this. They knew human nature much better than we do now, because we live in a time where we think human nature is malleable and we can change it. Thanks for playing. Wrong answer yet again. That's why it's called nature. It's inherently part of who and what we are. So we've got to get back to this as a nation. We got to get back to this sense of participation, informed participation in our government. Comment on the board from Deltros: because you should love your country if you expect to determine how it runs. Yes. God, country, family. and put it in a different way. God, your community, society, family. And that's biblical too. It's all about order, law and order, justice within society. That's how you achieve justice, is that system of law and order. This is why the founding fathers said that they would rather this country be run by Muslims before it was run by atheists. Yes, they did say that. And if you think that they liked the Muslims, you don't know our history of the founding of this nation. We were at war with the Muslims long before we were a country. So we got to get back to this. We must stay vigilant and involved. The founding fathers warned us, you don't stay vigilant, you will lose your freedoms. And that's how the progressives have taken over. Because the people who want their freedom don't want to pay for their freedom. And that's why the founders would say, then only let those people who will put their life on the line, who sign that blank check up to and including my life, to vote. Because they have offered up their lives literally to protect the country. So maybe they shouldn't, they should be the only ones allowed to vote. And it should be. That's where you get that idea in Starship Troopers. So, well, I own a whole bunch of property and I employ a lot of people. Yeah, well, that doesn't put your life on the line for that. So maybe it should be. If you don't serve, you don't vote. I don't know. We'll get to that in another show in the future. What we have to do now is to maintain a society, any society, especially a free one. A free and self-governing society requires a multi-tiered education system. Starts at home and the church, then your school system. Now, this is why we had public schools. Not because we wanted society to learn how to work for the big multi-moguls and the robber barons like the progressives will tell you. No. You have public schools in parts of Europe and mostly the United Kingdom, but also here in this country, primarily because of the Protestant movement. You have public schools so that you could learn to read your Bible for yourself. And it was one of the very first things that the colonists would do when they set up a new colony. They would set up a church, and that was church on Sunday and school during the rest of the week. And it was so that the kids could learn how to read their Bibles for themselves. That was a big Protestant thing. So the public schools supported the church and home life. That was all interconnected and intersupporting. The media is also supposed to support this. When you put the schools or the media under any type of control of the government, if they draw their funding from the government, they now become propaganda apparatus for the government. They are no longer serving their purposes. This is why our schools are helping children transition and lop off their genitals at the age of 6, 7, 8, and 9, get abortions and birth control without parental consent. Because you're having their depraved agenda shoved down your throat because it's mandated that you have to send your children to the public indoctrination centers. And this is why they fight any attempt to homeschool or go to charter schools, because they're trying to engineer the society they want. The school system, by all rights, the church and the school system and the media should be taken away from any form of governmental control. It must be left to the people to govern these things. Well, how are you going to fund the school then, Joe? Maybe mommy and daddy need to quit buying some of the things they buy and contribute to local school systems and run the school systems. Say, well, Joe, then some people in poor places aren't going to get as good an education as the rich. Want to bet? You want to bet? The poorest person in the world can get an education with nothing more than access to a public library. Now, if they have a mentor that helps put a little structure in the way they study, it'll get even better, but they don't need anybody else there. That once they're taught how to read, that's it. The problem is we no longer focus on how to keep an ordered, functioning society running. We've abdicated our duties to the state. You have given yourself to the beast. Biblically, that is exactly what a beast is. It's a governmental system, a kingdom, a king, a government. It's a beast because it destroys, it eats, it mutilates. It just feeds off the people and it makes you subservient. So the moment you think government first, you have taken the mark in your head, which means it will come out in your hand. That's exactly what that means. Comment on the board from Clay Toller. I'm not sure if this country has the stones to take this country back to where it needs to be. They can't stomach what it may take to take them back. I agree in the worldly sense. Second hour, I'll show you something I ran into that I want to share with you. It's going to govern my life from now on. So the schools, home, church, schools, media, they all must be honest, and the people running them have to understand they have a duty to others, to God, to the country, i.e. the system, and to each individual. So, God, country, family, well, that would be your local community family. So you have to have that duty. That's why Bongino can go do his job. He's got a duty first to his creator. I don't like the way he witnesses for Jesus, but at least he speaks Jesus and he claims Jesus. He's got a duty second to the country, meaning to our system of government and to the law. He's got a duty third to the people he serves. He puts that duty before his personal preference. The Bible calls you to do that all the time, to put your duty to the kingdom before your personal. That's what it means to take up your cross, to lay down your life and take up your cross. You put your will subservient to that of others. God first, then the community in which you live. But this is why the progressives seize control of these apparatus. They're trying to redefine the family, break up the family. They've been attacking religion, primarily the Judeo-Christian religion. They have invaded the schools. The whole reason that John freaking Dewey started kindergarten was to get his hands on your children at an earlier age. His words, not mine. And he got that from the Russians. Lenin said that if he had your kids for 4 years, the first 4 to 8 years, he doesn't need them anymore. He'll have them for the rest of their life because he's going to indoctrinate them. This is the way they went after pre-K, grade school, middle school, high school, and college. And then the media. News media and entertainment media, movies and music, even books. This is why they want control over these things. That's why they've got control over the organizations that choose which. 2 organizations choose 90% of the books in your public school system. And they are now both under control of Muslim influences. This is all social engineering, and it's all by design. But it is also spiritual. It's a spiritual battle. I've told you before, I'll tell you many times, and I'll tell you probably to the day I die. It is the only rational explanation I have that explains the continuity of agenda across multiple generations. The battles we're fighting today, did you see the show Wednesday? Somebody one of your classmates made the comment, the same as it ever was. They were quoting Ecclesiastes. Nothing new under the sun. The battle that Jesus was fighting with the Sanhedrin, the Pharisees and Sadducees, the scribes and all, if you understand what was going on in the Gospels, you can look at Washington, D.C. right now and see the same thing. You see the parallels. Now, don't get crazy and make Trump into a messiah. No. But at the moment, he seems to be serving the purpose that the Messiah did, the function. He's trying to reestablish law and order over a corrupted system. And the system is kicking and screaming. And what did they do in the Bible? They killed the reformer. Have they tried to kill Trump yet? Twice that we know about. Yes. So Jesus said that the Sanhedrin's father was the devil. And they wanted to get rid of Jesus for trying to put proper order back into their system, which was going to cost them their power. They said so in the Gospel of John. Why are they trying to kill Trump? Because if they allow him to continue, he'll take their power away. Who do you see the spiritual fathers aligning right now? Now, I'm not telling you that Trump is a godly person. I'm not. You know my reservations about that. Hear me clear. Take me at my word. Don't put anything in between the lines. But he's serving the purpose, the function, just like Cyrus did. Cyrus was not a Yahweh believer. He was Babylonian. Well, no, he was Persian, Meta-Persian and all, but still, he believed in different gods. But the purpose, the function, the parallels are there. This is a spiritual battle. And you'll look back in history, and you'll say, well, no, Joe, they did this then and this. Quit arguing over the flavors of the ice cream. You look deeper, you'll see the velocity vector. The direction that this country has taken ever since its founding. Ever since. Alexander Hamilton was there this whole time. He's in our country now. So that spirit, it's the spirit of the age. It's the spirit of this world. It's the God of the air. you are in a spiritual battle. And if you don't ever want to accept that, I can't help you. But you're either going to be aligned with above the spiritual realm, the Bible in my case, that's John Locke. Now, I know the founding fathers talked about natural law. They talked about natural law a la John Locke, who drew it from the first and second chapter of the book of Romans. His words, not mine. He wrote more about the book of Romans than he ever did about the first and second treatise on government. It's a multi-chapter tomed, you can get it. You can go to Amazon. You can look it up. You can get it free on your Kindle. It's many, many more pages than his first and second treatise on government. He wrote a tome on the book of Romans. And he told us that we have to pin our concept of natural law and natural rights on an active creator who still takes an interest in the world and will judge us according to how we live our life. If you go with Thomas Hobbes, then you get this, under natural law, life is short and brutal and blah, 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 blah. That's because he believes in the might makes right. That's an animalistic natural law. Hobbes is saying that the natural law of this universe was created by a moral creator who gave us a system that we can extrapolate a system of law for human beings who are moral agents. The rest of the animals are not, but you can look at nature and derive a moral system for mankind that is in alignment with the revealed law of God. That's Locke in a nutshell, paraphrasing it. Hobbes is, man is nothing but an animal. Look at how it is in nature. That's what man is like, unless we impose some sort of system on us, no matter how evil it may be. And once you're in this system, you have no right to rebel against it, because the rebellion puts you back on the nature. The law, he was all about order at any cost. Okay, so he dictated forced inherited subservience. He was advocating for the Indian caste system and the nation of India. That's his idea of natural law. They are two fundamentally diametrically opposed things, but if you do not pay attention to the details, they will sound a lot alike when you're reading them. As one of your classmates found, he was listening to Leviathan. He thought it sounded great. That's the fallacy of equivocation. You better pay attention to how he defines his terms. There's a reason that the founding fathers rejected Hobbes and went with Locke. So you're going to have to decide. If you're from above, it's the Bible and Locke. If you're going to be from below, it's man. Yeah, man becomes his own God. And we're nothing but a bunch of animals. We're Hobbesian. Now, what if the progressives said? Man's going to become his own God. Okay. So what I'm going to say to you is, choose this day whom you will serve. And once you've chosen whether you're going to serve above or below, then you have a duty to serve the leader of above and below, and his system of government. And if you read Romans further on, chapter 13, the creator of this universe, in my eyes, the El Elyon, the God Most High, is Yahweh. He gives a people, a nation, the government and leaders its people deserves. So if we have a corrupt government, it's because we've become corrupt first. So if you want to have a lawful, just system again over you, you must repent, turn back, seek Yahweh, his ways, learn his moral ways again, put them in your head so that you live them in your hand, your actions, seal yourself with the living God, and then seek his will, repent from your bad ways, your sinful ways, your lawless ways. The nation will start to change, because we will elect different people that we will not put up with and accept the lawlessness, or the Ziasabit will be like, fine, but ignorance is no excuse for the law. Put them in jail anyway, because that's how the law is supposed to work. Comment on the board from Clay Toller. Trump is not the new Messiah or a godly person, but I believe that God chose him at this time to correct the lawlessness and to return this country back to the Almighty. Now, that's a statement I can agree with, Mr. Toller. You and I are lockstep on that one. Now, I'm going to, Charlene, we're going to go to the break in just a minute, so be ready to go with that. When we come back with the break, I'm going to show you something else that I found on my cell phone just today. I was scrolling through social media, and I found something that's like, there's my mission statement for the rest of my life. And it's the reason for the second half of this show. It is. It focused me again. Simple messages. Memes, when they're done correctly with the right intention, rather than creating an audience or sounding cute and making money with them, but to help edify, uphold, uplift, teach each other, to encourage each other, to be each other's, brother's keeper. They can serve a very useful, lasting, and impactful purpose. I'm going to share that when I come back. And I told you it's going to get back to what I mentioned to one of the classmates earlier. We come back from the break, it's going to get a little more personal, and it's also going to talk about the fixing and refocusing of this show. I've gotten lost a little bit. I've been drifting for far too long in my life. And because I drifted in my life, the show has drifted. I've allowed it to drift. This is in line with everything I've told you. So I'm going to share with you what I've decided to do and how, and what it's going to mean for this show. And then I'm going to charge you with helping me stay on mission. And I'm going to charge you to help each other stay on mission. And we're going to start growing a family here. At least that's the way I'd like to see it. So we will see you in 6 minutes. Get back in your desk in time for class to start again. 6 minutes, and we'll see you then. Charlene? All right. I'm assuming everybody's back and ready to go now. Hopefully everybody can hear me. I hit a button during the break. I don't know if I muted myself or not. Where I want to go next with you is this. I have recognized for a while that I have been drifting. I've been a little aimless in my personal life, and it showed in my business. It showed in the show. It showed in everything I've been doing. And I've been making excuses for myself and saying, I've taken on too much. Well, I've seen other people in the world that take on a lot more than I do, and they succeed. And they do so relaxed because I got a different attitude about things. I've been sharing with you, I've been worried about what to do with the show. The show's not growing, blah, 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 blah. Here's the point. I lost focus because I was trying to serve. Thanks, Mr. Quest. He says that he hears us fine. I was trying to serve more than one master. And scripture tells you if you try to serve two masters, you're not going to be able to serve either one of them. This morning, I ran across this meme on Facebook. It says, the story of David in the Bible teaches us some profound lessons. And boy, did this one smack me in the nose. I'm going to go through this with you. And I am going to walk you through how I take the lessons I've learned in scripture and translate them into my life as I go through this meme with you. And then I'm going to share what it means with me and what I've decided to do because of this. This is all one meme that somebody shared. I'm going to show you the change it made in my life, or it helped me focus. It was a focusing point. Point number 1, stay in your lane. Be about your father's business, killing lions and bears. Okay, stay in my lane. I know that my job is to teach Yahweh's people, nobody else. I'm not supposed to be trying to teach the world. If some worldly people get into the class and they learn from us, hopefully it will bring them to the Father and the Son. I'm not going to chase them away. Don't get me wrong. But I'm here to teach Yahweh's people. That tells me several things. 1, we are never going to be a big show. Yahweh's remnant is small. 2, I cannot and will not lose that focus. I have got to constantly bring myself back to the point at hand, to the mission. Now, what you are seeing, and if you've been with us any length of time, you know I go through this regularly. I constantly go through these self-evaluation processes. Well, that's nothing more than job performance reviews. The same thing these people in the government are screaming about. Why are they screaming about it? Because they're being told they're supposed to actually be doing the job they're supposed to be doing. Well, I am supposed to be doing a job. I'm supposed to be teaching Yahweh's people. Now, in that case, like Paul, I have a business to run. And, Paul had the tent making business, which was probably making prayer shawls, not actual tents that you live in, but I could be wrong. I have a business that Yahweh gave me, and every time I've tried to get rid of it, he shoves it back in my hand. Why? Because that's how he can provide for me and provision for me to take care of myself and my family so that I can teach his people. So I've got to stay in my lane. I'm not supposed to do anything other than this. Number 2, you don't have to, quote unquote, climb the ladder or strive. If you're meant to be king, they'll come looking for you. So what that told Joe is quit trying to be the biggest show in the world. Quit trying to, the point number 1, quit trying to tailor my message for the world. Teach Yahweh's people. And then quit trying to be anything more than what I'm supposed to be. Yahweh will send those people to this show that he wants in this show. He might need other people, other members of his flock to go to different places so that those teachers can talk to them in a way that those sheep will understand. I'm here to serve. Stay in my lane. Let him do whatever he's going to do with it. Point number 3, don't be distracted fighting to be in the lineup for promotion. If it's supposed to happen, God will make it happen. Yahweh will make it happen. So quit worrying about all this. Stay focused on what I feel I'm supposed to teach. I'm not going to ever be an entertainer. I'm not an entertainer. I can be a little silly and foolish sometimes, and I have been told I find, that I've been given the talent to teach in a way that will keep your attention. Well, I got to quit trying to be something I'm not. Quit trying to chase things that I'm not supposed to have.
This told me to get my dadgum Marine Corps private butt back on mission and quit looking off on every other place I'm supposed to be and stick to what I'm supposed to do. Let the rest of the body take care of itself, and the head, meaning the Messiah and the Holy Spirit, take care of guiding the rest of the body. Do my job and the rest will take care of itself. And this is, no one can take from you what God has given you. And that's true. So if he has given me this job, it can't be taken from me. And if I'm supposed to succeed, it'll succeed. Not because of me, but because of him. He'll make it succeed if I do what he asks me to do and what he has equipped me to do, mentally, temperamentally, psychologically. But I've told you, I recognize I am a fairly self-aware individual. I know myself. I am Jonah. I kick at the boards because I'm lazy. I'm lazy. I'm arrogant. And I'm self-centered sometimes. I'm selfish. So I kick at the boards and I don't do what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to work on this year. Knee to the ground. Solid, firm, in the ground till it hurts. Bend my will to his. Get the planks out of my own eyes. Quit worrying so much about others, but that doesn't mean I won't use things as teachable moments. Get the yeast out of my life. We're coming up on Passover, first day of unleavened bread. Yeast is representative of sin. Get the sin out of my life. Discipline, focus. I've lost that. I've got to get my discipline, self-discipline, and my moral virtue back. And the founders told us, if you ever lose that, it is dang near impossible to get it back. If you don't instill it in your children when they're children, they will never get it. Unless God reaches into their life and changes them himself, they will never be self-disciplined, focused people who can put others before themselves. That's why that has to be instilled as a child. Because then when they get older and they grow up and mature, they will return to that teaching, just like I did. And if you're old enough and you were raised properly, all of us can look back and see we went through that youthful phase when we got out of school where we kind of left our home bringing, or a lot of us did. But as we've gotten older and the responsibilities of life came back to us, we returned to how we were taught. That's human nature. I've got to get that back. That's going to be dang near impossible for me. As a nation, we need to get that back. I don't know of any place in history where that has happened without an act of God. I'm not the world's best historian, but I study from Adam and Eve till now. I study all of history. Little pieces. I got certain areas I'm better at than others, but I don't know of an example in history where the people have restored themselves without an act of God. And that can include wars. So I don't know how we're going to do this that way. But I do know this. I'm supposed to teach his people, focus on my business so that he can equip me to do that. I have to refocus, rededicate my life, my business, and this show. I've tried to make this show into something it should have never been. And that was me. That was because of me. I was chasing things I shouldn't have chased. Doing things I shouldn't be doing. I was Jonah. I will always be Jonah. That's who I am. But I can fight that. It's going to suck. I'm going to have to do things I don't want to do. Going to lose sleep. Going to lose opportunities to go play. I can sleep when I'm dead, and I'm too old to be playing. Body won't let me play anymore, so get back to work. That gets us back to the Road to Concord. When I first named it, I thought I was being cute. The battle in Lexington Green, Concord and Lexington Green. I realize now that that battle started in Egypt. Actually, it started before then. It started in city of when Yahweh called Abram out of said, go to the land I'm going to send you to. That's when this road started. This is a culmination of prophecy. It probably started even before the foundations of the earth. But where am I at now? Fridays are supposed to be about the founding principles and ideas of this country. that the founding fathers and what they set up, why they were doing it, why they did it the way they did, what were they trying to do. We live in a society that has been lied to in so many ways we don't even know where all the lies are. And some of us here, we're trying to come out of the Matrix, come out of Mystery Babylon as well. Out of Mystery Babylon on Wednesday, out of the Matrix on Friday. Might have to incorporate that some way in the show. So we've been lied to about how you have to have experts to teach you things. That's Woodrow freaking Wilson right there, Jack. You don't need experts. Were any of the founding fathers experts in setting up a country? No, none of them had ever done it before. They were all neophytes, novices. They did a pretty darn good job looking at history. So we're going to deal with the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, natural law, natural rights, the founding ideals. These things should be able to be read and understood or discussed by lay people. We should be able to read and understand the law for ourselves. And we can, if we try. The founders said so. The founders said it was of no use to anybody if you couldn't read the laws on your own and understand them. It was important to them that the average person could understand these things. That's why they taught people to read the Bible, so that you could read the law of God and work out your own salvation for yourself. Well, the Constitution was written that way. And so was the Declaration, so that the average layperson could read it and understand what it meant. We don't need experts to teach us these things. We don't. That's like saying I need a priest to understand the Bible. No, you don't. You do not need a priest to teach you God's word. You don't need an expert or a lawyer to teach you the Constitution. But we will need some help. We're going to study this on our own going forward. But we will need some help. Like the Bible, the founders' time and the language they used has been lost to us. Natasha, if you don't mind, pop yourself on here for a minute. You've been trying to read some of the founding fathers' language too, haven't you?
Yes.
And you've asked me to translate, haven't you?
Yes.
Well, it's in English. Why did you need a translator?
It's not the type of English I grew up understanding.
Exactly. It's still English, but it's not the way we use it. And I'm not trying to put Natasha on the spot here. She's mentioned this. That's why I asked her to come in. And because Charlie just mentioned he's listening to the Anti-Federalists, and he's like, he doesn't understand their language either. I've learned it. I learned it. How did I learn it? I've read them side by side with Webster's 1828 dictionary when I first started. Thanks, Natasha. Because I had to learn the language. So if we're studying the Bible, we need to learn biblical Hebrew and Koine Greek. We're going to need to relearn some of the ways the founders used their language. That time and place has been lost to us. We have tools. Whereas you do not need a priest to teach you Yahweh's word. It helps if you have a teacher to help you with Yahweh's word, especially to teach you the language and the culture and the traditions. They don't need to teach you what it means, but if I teach you the language, the culture, the figures of speech, the traditions, when you read the Bible for yourself, it'll talk to you differently. The Constitution's going to talk to you differently if we learn a little bit of their language and the times in which they're writing. What are they dealing with? Why? How? What is their world like? We're going to have to recapture some of this. So what I'm proposing is that on Wednesdays, I will do a lot of that with the Bible, teach you the culture, the background, the idioms, the figures of speech, the things I've learned so that you can then better understand your Bible when you read it for yourself. I will read scripture and help you connect dots. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to do the same thing with the Constitution, the Declaration, and our founding documents. I'm going to help you to recapture the world in which the founders lived, what they were dealing with, why they did things the way they did them, and to help you understand the language they're using so that when you read these documents for yourself, you can better understand them. Because it is only in the original context that either the Bible or our founding documents can be and should be understood. The Bible says so. The founding fathers said so. Both Jefferson and Madison were very explicit. You take the Constitution in its original intent or not at all, because that's the binding contract. Woodrow Wilson Abraham Lincoln, every progressive ever since wants to get away from that. They don't want to be chained down because they want to be little g gods. That's what it comes down to. They want to be gods. A person who cannot subserviate themselves to the leadership of others is a would-be tyrant that thinks of themselves as God. If you cannot follow the orders and directions of another, it's because you think you're God. Freaking every progressive that ever existed. Yes, that's good, Natasha.
That should about cover it.
Yes. So I'm going to share, like I've done with on Wednesdays, I share what I've learned about the scripture studies with you. I don't tell you that that's the only way to read it. I share it with you. You decide for yourself. You have to test it yourself. I'm going to share what I've learned about the founders, about the Declaration of Independence, about the Constitution, about the world in which they lived, what type of environment and culture and inheritance they're coming out of, what they tried to leave for us. You'll have to test it against the original documents yourself to decide for yourself. The blog page, the roadtoconcord.com. That's right here, the roadtoconcord.com. That's homeroom. We've been set up to act kind of like, it's just acting like a school classroom. So this is homeroom. This is where I'm going to put all your homework, show notes, homework assignments or whatever. If you go over here pretty soon, next week or so, this little piece right here, let me blow that back up for you right here where it says homework in your left-hand margin. I'm going to change the way that works. You click on that. That'll give you your current homework assignment. And in this case, it's just going to be reference material that you need to try to find time to browse through before the next class. I'll try not to overload you. And it'll say, this is your homework. And then underneath, here's for extra reading. And that's for those who have more time or more interest. But I will give you the bullet points I need you to do. I'm going to start doing my job. This is a labor of love for my fellow man and for Yahweh's people. I don't get paid for this. We are barely keeping this show running. It is entirely audience sponsored. I don't have the audience to keep it running through advertisement, and we never will. I've given up on that. If Yahweh wants it to be that successful, he'll handle it. I am just going to have to depend on him to provide for this show. If I'm doing what he wants me to do, he'll fund it. If it ever doesn't have the funding, that'll be my sign to quit. And I will. Because that'll tell me that I'm not serving anybody other than myself. So this is not intended to make me money. This is not an income. That's what my business is for. That's my tent making. I got it. Now, one little meme smacked me upside the head with a 6x and woke me up. So homeroom right here. I will soon have the links put up on here for you. The Rumbles channel, Facebook, X, YouTube, Twitch. These are all different classrooms. I'm going to start using them differently. I've already started posting some of our blog posts that where my political commentary goes. I put it up on the blog. You'll find it there. But I've started sharing it on Facebook and on X. So if you're a subscriber there, you'll start seeing these things come up in the Facebook feed and on X. I'm going to use Facebook also as a bulletin board. I'm going to start using the social media as a tool to better help expand the footprint, make it easier for you to share our content and share what we're doing with other people. The blog is homeroom. That's going to be used for your directions. And that's where you're going to have your homework assignments and your library, archives. The homeroom, the blog is the library. It's homeroom. It's also where we're going to store the archives of everything we've done. And I'm going to change the menus up there a little bit, put them in different places. They'll still be there, but I'm going to move things around a little bit so that it's easier to obtain and the references material that I've been posting all this time. Make it easier for you to find, make it easier to search. I want the blog page to become a very useful reference tool. You're going to have to learn how to navigate around it. Yeah, I got that. But for the most part, all you should have to do is search it and find what you're looking for. The classes, those things are on the Rumble, Facebook, or whatever. That's explanation and commentary. I'm going to use it that way. Homework is going to be up to you to do. You get out of it what you put into it. You can watch entertainment media. You can scroll through Facebook, or You can go to your homework, pop up something that I've given you to read through, and just read through it. I'm going to try and make the lessons shorter and sweeter and a lot easier to keep up with. It'll take longer to learn everything, but that's just the way it's going to be. We've got to do a better job. I feed you with a fire hose way too much. I need to turn the faucet down to like a trickle when the pipes are going to keep the pipes from freezing. Just a little trickle. It runs all night, and hopefully more of that will be retained. I'll keep working on the blog page. It'll start changing just a little bit in the way it looks, but basically all I'm going to do is move things around. So keep looking for them. They'll be there. I'm going to keep working on the other pages, Facebook and X and YouTube and everything. I'm going to work to try and brand and promote the show, but not the way I was talking about. I don't care if we grow or not. I just want to try and put it out in a way that if you share it, it won't look as homegrown as it does. A little bit more thought and effort into our presentation, so that if you do share it with somebody, they won't think you're sending them some hick site for them to. I'm going to try. Appearances matter. I'm going to pay more attention to my appearance. I usually don't. I've never really cared about my appearance or presentation because I've always been the content matters most type of person, but that's not the world in which I live. I have to be in it, not of it. So I'm going to try to work on making it so that if you share the show so that others might study with you, it'll be a little more inviting and they might give us more time. Like I said, shorter, more focused lessons, more in-depth when I go into these lessons. Also, I'm going to do more in-depth posts on the blog page. They're going to be two types. There'll be just the flippant little political commentary that are kind of written with my normal, natural snarkiness. And I'm going to start going back to in-depth, thoughtful pieces that I might have submitted to my philosophy professors when I was in school. Maybe some of those will get picked up and we'll start, if Yahweh wants them to be, and I start getting serious with this, I'm going to become the philosopher that I'm supposed to be. And maybe it'll get picked up and it'll help. Maybe it won't. I don't know. I don't care anymore. I don't care. I want to see if we can't find a way to get more discussion going on the show, both in the comment section, because the more you comment, the better it helps the show. A lot of people listen, but very few of you comment. I get it. You're either working or whatever. But your interaction, your comments, your likes, your reviews, all of this stuff will help the show. I'm not trying to promote the show, but I also have to help the show reach other people. This is going to sound duplicitous. It's all about intent. I still have to do what I have to do so that the show doesn't look like something that looks like it's worth your time. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say and what my intention is. I am going back. Hair and makeup, Joe. Hair and makeup. Yes, Aaron. Yes. Well, I have a face made for radio. Maybe I should avatar myself. I'm going to go back to Fridays. We're keeping Wednesdays, Worship Wednesdays. We're going back to Founders Fridays. It's going to be Founders Fridays every Friday starting March 14th. I'm going back to it on March 14th. It starts on the 14th. Next Friday, we've got a family thing going on. I will do extra shows as time permits. So they'll either be Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, wherever I can throw them in. If you have not subscribed to Rumble and or the blog page, I'm not going to ask you to do so. I'm just going to tell you, if you want notifications of new shows, you need to subscribe to either. We prefer Rumble. I would like it if you were subscribed to the blog page, because then you get notification of everything I do on the blog page, not just the Rumble shows, because the blog page doesn't tell you we've set up a new Rumble show. It only tells you if I've posted a new homework assignment, new show notes. If you're not signed up to Rumble or our Facebook account, you won't get notifications of a new show. That, or because X doesn't always notify you. I don't go to every show on YouTube. I don't know how Twitch works because I don't follow it that often. So Rumble or Facebook, please. I'm going to start with this. Yes, ma'am.
Just throwing out there, it's probably best to check Rumble maybe on a daily basis, because they do send notifications, but they're bad about not sending them like right when we go live.
Yeah.
And personally, I like a bit of a heads up. So,
well, they'll know from now on that Wednesday, Worship Wednesday and Founders Friday, 9:00 Central Time every morning. We're going to be on from now on. I'm going back to that.
And we're going to start on March 14th with that. That's when the regular Fridays start back up. We'll still be doing Wednesday. There'll be a Wednesday show next week. Charlie will still try to. I'm going to see if he's still ready to do another show in his Mormon series. We'll try to get him to do those on Mondays. That seems to be working best for him anyhow. He does them on Friday only when I'm not going to be there. I'm going to be there from now on. So that's going to leave us Tuesdays and Thursdays open. I don't see me doing anything with those anytime soon. I need that time to make my tent, my tent making business. What we're going to be doing next is we're going to get ready to talk about the judiciary. So this is where I'm at right here. And you're going to see up here, these are the three latest or the three pinned. And then you can scroll down. You'll see all the other stories I've done in order. I want to show you a couple I've done here real quick. This is one of the posts I wrote. I need to write this one more seriously, but this has got a little snark in it. This is huge gamble, or as Trump would say, huge gamble. And I think President Trump is taking a big risk with the way he's handling these court cases. They're lawless. The judges are wrong, but President Trump is kowtowing to them. He's obeying their restraining orders and their rulings, and he's letting the courts dictate to him. I understand the legal strategy here is that he's gambling that when he takes these to the Supreme Court comes down on his side, which will, if that happens, it'll make the presidency stronger. But all it takes is the Supreme Court to side with one of these rogue judges once, and he will have destroyed the presidency. Because the judges are, at this point in time, they're all these TROs and these dictates to the executive are lawless. And we're going to cover that starting March 14th. We're going to go through this piece at a time. These judges need to be impeached. This is judicial activism. This is overreach. This is lawless. This is subversion, usurpation. This is a violation of the separations powers. This is absolute trashing of the Constitution. That's where our constitutional crisis is right now in the judges. But let's say he takes one of these rulings to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court says, yep, you need to obey that. He then has to disobey the Supreme Court, or he has given them the precedent they need to do that forever and ever. Amen. That's about optics. That's why I said I have to worry about the optics with the show. You have to worry about optics with the American people. If it looks like now, look, the president's no longer obeying the Supreme Court. He did there, but now he's not doing it here. Look, he's rogue. That could cost him his presidency. In my opinion, which isn't worth much because I've never run for office. I'm just a nobody. But I have thought about this. I know human nature. I do know the theory of law. I do know the Constitution the way it was meant to run. In my opinion, what President Trump ought to do is take primetime TV slots, every social media, conservative social media group that I can think of primarily, but any other lamestream media that'll give him time. And he needs to come on and he needs to explain. And he got to get his people to explain the Constitution to him because I'm not sure he knows it. But once he's got this down in his head, come on, say, hey, American people, here's where we're at. We do have a constitutional crisis. It's not the one that the lamestream media and the left is telling you about. It's these judges. These judges are doing exactly what the progressives wanted and exactly what Thomas Jefferson and the founding fathers and the anti-federalists warned us they would do. They are trying to seize an unelected, unaccountable oligarchy away from the Congress and the presidency, the executive. They're trying to consolidate power in the judiciary like days of old and dictate to everybody else in the country what they can and cannot do. This is unconstitutional. Then he just going to read a couple of sections. We'll cover those here just in a few minutes. Just read a little bit of Article 1, 2, and 3, first few sentences, and then tell the American people, therefore, I will no longer be obeying any judicial order from these lower courts that I deem to be unconstitutional. Instead, I will seek any and every legal means to remove those subversive judges from the bench and see to it that they never practice law in this country again. And then just say, as promised, I'm trying to clean out the deep state and do what I promised you I would do in my campaign. And as your president, I plan on keeping my campaign promises. And the reason I'm telling you this is I want to be as transparent as I promised I would be. And then say, God bless, good night, and get off the air.
That way he could disobey these lawless judges and the people would be behind him. So I put that post up there explaining that in a little more detail. Then I gave you this one. I have found two people on YouTube, both lawyers. Robert Gouveia, he has a YouTube channel right here. And then another one, Law of Self-Defense. Now they're lawyers, so they're kind of a little dry. But this is up here now. It's under Lawfare. A PSA to the board, help sort out all these court cases. This lawyer here, Robert G., he has literally he goes and he gets the documents. He's getting the court case documents, all the injunctions and the TROs and the fight, and he is putting them up like I'm doing right now, right here, on the show. He puts them up and he goes through them line by line and he reads through them and he explains them to you in layman's language. He reads the legal language, then he tells you it. Now he's a little snarky to the left. He's right leaning. You can tell by the way he acts. He's MAGA and he's snarky to the left, but he's fair. He's being honest. And he's going through the actual documents. He's showing you the original source. Then the next lawyer, the one under Law of Self-Defense, he's explaining the legal arguments and the thinking and the cases and the logic behind all of this. Both of them, they're lawyers, so they're a little dry, and especially the first guy, the nature of what he's dealing with is legal language, so it's dry. But man, if you want some clarification, those two right there are where I would strongly suggest you think about going. Which brings us to what I told you we were going to share. This is homework for March 14th. I'll have it in the homework link before the end of sometime or before next Wednesday. It'll be done, and I'll make a quick announcement, homework, housekeeping announcement on Wednesday. But this is already in your show notes for today's show. What I want to point out here is this: Section 1, Article 1, Section 1 of the United States Constitution. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate, House, and Representatives. When the Congress created bureaucracies and shoved them under the executive, all of those laws are unconstitutional. You have to amend that first line of Article 1, Section 1 in order to create a bureaucracy and stick it under any branch other than the legislative. Because the bureaucracies, they make regulations and all this other stuff. They call it something other than law, but it carries the weight of law. And they will fine you and they will jail you for it. And they'll take your property away. These executive orders that the presidents have been writing, that carry the weight of law. Those are all unconstitutional. All. The entire bureaucratic system is unconstitutional. It is Woodrow freaking Wilson. So I want to take you to the next one right here. Article 2, Section 1. Article 2. The executive power shall be vested in a president of the United States. He shall hold his office during the term of 4 years and together with the vice president choose the same term, be elected as follows. The executive power. Anything and everything dealing with running the executive department belongs to the president. Executive orders are only supposed to affect the executive. To the extent that they do, they are legal because that's not carrying the weight of law. That is the CEO of a business telling everybody below him what to do. The president was elected to do that. He has that authority, which means if you have created an unconstitutional bureaucracy and shoved it under the executive, unconstitutional or not, they are part of the executive, and the executive power the president has all authority over the executive. So if he decided today, because he had some bad bratwurst and burped something in the middle of his nappy nap, he woke up and said, I fire everybody. And the judges said, you can't do that. I have a little news flash for you, Judge. Yes, he can. Yes, he can. Right there. The Constitution, the executive power, the authority over the executive shall be in a president who is elected, not an unelected, appointed lesser judge. That brings us to the last point. This is Article 3, Section 1. The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court, and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. The judges, both of the supreme and inferior courts, shall hold their office during good behavior, and shall, at stated times, receive for their service a compensation which shall not be diminished during their continuance in office. Now, let me explain what this means. You can remove those individual judges for bad behavior. President Trump has a majority in the House and Senate right now. If he has judges in the lesser courts of the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., who are going to keep doing this, and he can't remove them because it's going to be hard to impeach them. The Senate needs to be 3/4 to impeach. He's not going to get that. We've never seen how to remove a judge for bad behavior. We might be able to fly that up past the Supreme Court and say, but the Supreme Court can't rule. We've got no guidance on that. But we do have guidance in Article 3, Section 1. The Congress can create these courts. If the Congress has the authority to create them, the Congress has the authority to abolish them. So what he should be doing is telling the House, I want this lower court removed. Push it past the Senate. I'll sign it. The court will be disbanded. The next day, you can put another bill in there to replace it. And I can appoint all new judges. That's legal. That's legal. Now, it's dangerous, but not as dangerous as the game the president is playing right now. This is the discussion we are going to start and have on March 14th, and in much more depth. So what I need you to do, we got a comment on the board from Marianne Boatwright, says, so what is checks and balances? That is how checks and balances work, Miss Boatwright. The president, the judiciary, the executive, and the legislative, Congress, the president, and the judiciary all have equal authority under the Constitution to decide what isn't constitutional. If you read Article 3, the courts have the right to decide arguments between everybody else. You know who else has the right to decide what is and isn't constitutional? Each individual state. See, we think there's 3 branches of government. There's actually 4. The states created the federal government. They can nullify. So let's say, and this is another thing, we will cover this on the 14th. You have to have standing before a federal court. You and I can't come to the federal court. We have no authority in the federal government. We didn't create it. You cannot sue the federal government. We're individuals. So all these unions going to these courts and getting their temporary stay because they're not getting paid, they have no standing. The states can sue the federal government. The Congress can sue the executive, and back and forth, the different branches can sue. But individuals, you have no standing. Other countries can sue, but you have to come under the standing of the federal government. So a lot of these cases should have been thrown out on their merit. So what happens is you have a judiciary that's gone rogue. Well, the legislature can say, yeah, it is, or no, it isn't, and complain and do nothing about it. Okay, that's one check that didn't balance out the rogue judges. The executive, the way it's operating right now, is kowtowing to the judges. Now, he can fight them. What I just explained would be a check or a balance. Checks and balances. I would check their rogueness and balance us back out to come into line with the constitutional way of doing things by destroying the court that's causing us trouble and getting rid of those judges. You get rid of them and just don't appoint them again. Now, you're setting a precedent for other presidents to do the same, but then the check and balance to them doing that is that they have to have both the Congress and the House with sufficient numbers to get that passed. Now, I'm not saying President Trump would be able to get this done, but he might. And it is a legal way of checking the rogue courts. He's hoping that the Supreme Court will vote with him. Don't count on that, because all it takes is Roberts to have his bad borscht again in the middle of the night, rewrite his verdict in crayon, and you got Obamacare again, which was a totally illegal verdict because they changed the law. We will find on March 14th that the Supreme Court has no authority to say, well, I like this, this, and this, but I don't like that. So this stays, that goes, and you got to change that. They can't do that. The president can't line item veto. The courts can't line item veto. All they can do is say the entire law, yay or nay. So let's say you pass one of these little laws and it's bundled. So I got 50 laws under this one omnibus package, and one of them comes up between the court. The court says, yep, that's unconstitutional. Then everything that was passed under that omnibus is now unconstitutional according to the Constitution. But oh no, we can't do that. It'll cause too much trouble. That's human thinking. Now you are following the God of this world, not the God of higher above. And you are in violation of the Constitution. We are going to explain these things in great detail from now on. I'm not going to feed you with a fire hose anymore. If I have to, we'll do them in 30 or 60-minute segments, or maybe I'll give the 30-minute lesson and we'll spend 60 minutes beating that horse from every direction we can find so that everybody gets their heads wrapped around it. But the more we understand this, the more we carry this into our lives, and the more people around us will be affected by it, because we can then explain to them. And when they say, well, that's not what you say, hey, it doesn't matter what that idiot thinks. This is what the law says. This is what the people who wrote that law say. That's how it's supposed to work. Well, you're being idealistic. Exactly. If you're not being idealistic, you will miss the target every time. People who tell you, well, you're just an idealist, are people who are saying, well, you don't really care about fault. You know, you talk about sin, but you don't really mean it. Sin is missing the mark. So if you can't shoot for the ideal, you can't sin, because you can never miss the mark. There is no target. That's what an idealist is. You're never going to reach the ideal. Grown-ups understand that. But grown-ups also understand you got to shoot for the mark. It's kind of like, I was in the Marine Corps. We shoot 12-inch target. Well, in the very center of that target is a little bitty ring. We call it the V ring, and it's got a V in the middle of it. That's why it's called the V ring, but that's a really small ring, and it's dead center of the target. You're shooting for the V ring. You might hit the bullseye without ever hitting the V ring. Good shooters always hit that V ring, never the bullseye. I mean, it's still in the bullseye, but that's perfect. So you can hit the bullseye and not be perfect. That's how this works. Okay, you can hit the law and still not be perfect to it. The V ring is idealism. We're never going to get there. But if you're not shooting for that, well, then, if the target's over there, bang, 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 bang. Oh, why didn't it work? Well, you weren't shooting for the target, you moron. We've got to shoot for the ideal. So if somebody ever calls you being an idealist, tell them, yeah, you're darn right. I'm trying to be perfect. I never will be. But if I don't have an ideal to hold myself up against, a standard to hold myself against, I can never improve. That's what idealism is supposed to do for us. Well, we have to learn that ideal so that we can shoot at it. And as we learn it, we do nothing. I'll get to the comment in just a second, Natasha. Do nothing more than hold your ground. Put that back up there. Can't read it. Okay. Do nothing more than hold your ground. Hold to your ideals and principles. That's what it means to be virtuous, principled. Natasha says we're supposed to get closer with each try. Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's the whole point of that meme I shared with you today. It's reminding me to tighten my focus. I haven't even been shooting at the target. I've been spray and pray, as they call it. Well, they call it spray and pray for a reason. If you're just, you got to pray you hit something, and you usually don't. If you're not shooting at a target, you're guaranteed to hit what you're shooting at. Nothing. That's the idealism. Well, in this case, what we're going to learn is what the founding fathers intended for us. And we're going to do it just by reading what they wrote down for us in the language of their time. That's it. In some cases, we don't even have to go to the dictionary. It means today what it meant back then. In some cases, we're going to have to go to the dictionary. Because like if you're going to go and you look up providence, people today will tell you, well, that's in the Declaration of Independence, and the providence is that just means any God. That's deism. It just, whatever. That's not what it meant in their day and age. You better go look that up. That meant that it was the active provision of the living God. In other words, it was God doing exactly what I said I'm going to rely on. It's God giving you what you needed to do his work in your day-to-day life and making sure that his will ended up presiding over everything else in the world, no matter how bad we tried to screw it up. So we'll have to learn some of the ways they used their language. So we'll get to that. But that is where I'm at today. That's what I wanted to share with you today. You have your homework. I'll try to get that arranged sometime over the weekend. I'll let you know how well I got that done Wednesday. We do have another Worship Wednesday show coming up. I don't know yet. He hasn't given me anything on that. I don't know what we'll be doing.
Last Wednesday was a little different for me, but hopefully those of you who caught the show were able to catch what I was trying to do. It was a little bit of practical application where I crossed over what most people would think of as the secular. That's another thing, folks, where the progressive says that everything is political. That's because to them, everything is religious. The world is their religion, and politics is their religion. So everything falls under their religion. Well, if you are a follower of Yahweh and his son, the Messiah, everything's religious for you too. You have to have his seal, and you put his word in your head, do it in your hand. Well, if you're living as a disciple and a member of his kingdom, that's going to come out in the way you live your life in this material world, and it will show. And that's why the world will hate you. If you're a professed believer and the world doesn't hate you, I'm not telling you you're not saved. What I'm telling you is you're not being a very good witness for the kingdom, because the world doesn't recognize you as a citizen of the kingdom of Yahweh, because you're not living like one. That's a problem, because that means you're going to be living like a progressive, or at least living the way the progressive wants you to. If they can't get you to join them, they're going to try to get you to sit down and shut up and be silent. You can't do that, because that's the same thing as being ashamed of the Messiah. And if you're ashamed of the Messiah before men, he says he's going to be ashamed of us before the Father. You don't want to be in that position. So you have to choose higher order or the lower order. And if you choose higher, now you have an obligation and a duty to know the rules, his and the Constitution, as well as your state constitution and your local laws and ordinances. And you have an obligation and a duty to be involved in doing your master's work, and to be involved in your local and state and federal government to the extent that you are able. And if you're not going to do these things, you shouldn't be voting. You shouldn't. Well, I've got a right to vote. You have a duty to do the things I just mentioned. If you're voting without doing your duty, that's like being somebody who's decided he's going to commit, he's going to perform surgery, or she's going to perform surgery, whichever way you want to go, without ever having gone to med school. Well, I've got a duty to, I've got a right to operate it. Yeah, but you had a duty to go learn how first. Well, yeah, I got a right to operate. I'm going to operate. Oh, well, he died on the table. Sucks for him. Can't hold me accountable. I had a right to operate. That's not as silly a comparison as people might think it is. We have a sacred duty when we vote. Founders said so. I also told you that that duty is to vote Christian when you vote, not party. But then again, I'm not allowed to say that. That's separation of church and state, which is another lie. Not the way we think of it. There's a lot of things that we're going to start clearing up in the future. There are other more detailed, more formalized classes. You can go to Hillsdale and learn some of this stuff, but I've even caught Hillsdale teaching things contrary to what the founders wrote with their own quills, pens in their day and age. I'm just going to share what I've learned. Yeah, Wade Stavely. Bullseye is 10 points. V-ring is 10 points plus 5 for V. 10 plus 5 equals 15. Yes, sir. That V-ring is small. Folks, Mr. Stavely is a former sniper. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. He was probably pretty darn good at hitting that V-ring. When I was younger, I was good at it, but I wasn't that good at it. I could hit the bullseye, but only 50-50 on the big V-ring. Marianne says she's done some of Hillsdale stuff. I'm not poo-pooing them. Don't get me wrong. PragerU and Hillsdale, those are all good places. But I'm just saying that some of what they teach about the Constitution has been infected with progressive thinking. Just like people will tell you the Declaration isn't law. Well, that would have come as a surprise to the Founding Fathers. They said it was the establishing legal document of this nation. And the preamble to the Constitution recognizes that the United States had existed for 12 years before the Constitution was written. Well, if the Constitution was supposed to be our founding document, then how the heck did we exist for 12 years? And if the Declaration of Independence is not a legal document, legally binding, then how the heck could it establish a nation? It's called logical extension, folks. It was
the document that had established this nation. And it was written as a legal document of its day and age, an international form of an international legal document. And it was ratified by the states. The people who wrote the Declaration had to go back to their state governments and get okay. And they did. And it was signed, which means it's a legal document. It was legally binding. And John Quincy Adams, I think he was 1824 or 1826, reminded the people that you were still under that document. It had not been disannulled, meaning it had not been nullified. So when Woodrow Wilson and the progressives come along and just separate it from the Constitution and say it's not law, they lied. The Declaration of Independence is a legal document. It is the what and the why of this country, and it is the compass by which you must navigate the Constitution. If you try to navigate the Constitution without the Declaration of Independence, you are a ship without compass or rudder or sail. You're just going to go along with the waves, which is exactly what the progressives want. That's why they seem to always be blowing in different directions like waves, but they always have taken us on the same velocity vector toward tyranny. The fight is between fascism and communism. That's what you're really seeing. The pendulum sways back and forth between those two, but you're still marching further and further toward tyranny. Something, oh, the Old Testament has been done away with. Yeah. It's the very same idea. The Old Testament's been done away with, so you can bounce around in the New Testament whichever way you want, even though the New Testament constantly points you back to the Old for your compass and your sail and your rudder. We don't pay attention. Wade says he averaged 8 out of 10 V rings with peep sights at 500 yards. Yeah, that's better than me, brother. I could keep it in the black, but I couldn't keep it in the V ring at 500 yards with the good old iron sights. I was still about hit and miss there. Although most of y'all aren't going to appreciate this. Wade will. I did qualify with peep sights in boot camp on a range that had a full value 90-degree crosswind from left to right, meaning that flag was straight out, Wade, and it was raining. And I had to align my sights on the post of the target to my left and then use that to direct my rounds and hit the center of mine because I couldn't get enough full left windage to bring the target on my, the round on hitting on my target. So I had to use an offset to shoot. And I still put all 10 rounds in the black at 500 yards in that environment. So I'm not a good sniper like you, but I'll keep their head down, brother. At least when I was younger, I would. So most of you who don't shoot probably don't appreciate what I just said, but it made my drill instructor say, yeah, dance around when all 10 rounds hit the black at that day. I was only one of 2 people in the entire series that qualified expert that day. 260 Marines. So anyhow, and I still wouldn't compare myself to Wade. He was snipers much better than me, much more patient than me too. All right, we will be back on Wednesday. We thank you for being here. We appreciate you for being here, for everything you do for us. Those younger days. If you would be so kind, if you do like what we're doing, I can ask you to do several things for us. At least hit the like buttons. Now, if you don't like it, don't do that. Nobody does anything against their will here with this show. But if you do like what we're doing, at least give us a thumbs up. Share the show with whoever you think, or just in general in your social feeds. Share it. Maybe somebody will find it and we can help them. Spread the news, spread the word about us. Tell them about me. We know that I'm an acquired taste, man. We got it. We know how I come off. I know. I'm aware. I do the best I can. Had you known me 20, 30, 40 years ago, you wouldn't be here. Marianne's the only one in the house right now that understands what I'm saying. If you'd have known me in high school, you would have wanted nothing to do with me, and I don't blame them. But if you also can do so, I know it's easier to just go get the free shows, but if you want to keep us around, all we ask is that you set up a $5 a month donation. I know it's a lot in this day and age. I got that. But $5 a month, if you can afford it, we need your help. That's how we keep the show on. We're right on that razor's edge because we've lost some classmates. Several of them have passed away. A couple of, we're not doing what they like anymore. I get it. I understand. But we need your help. I can't afford to keep putting this on. I already fork out as much as my wife will let me spend. So, yeah, this is a net negative to us. And I don't mean to brag or boast or anything like that. But what I'm trying to say is We're here for you in service. And if that doesn't prove it, I don't know what will. So if it's valuable to you, consider it. And if you have the means, maybe $5 to us and $5 less in the plate. I don't know. Whatever you can do to help us keep the word going. So we will see you next Wednesday, unless Charlie is in the mood for something on Monday, which I don't think he will be. Clean up on aisle Twitch, it looks like. Until then,
Yadam.
we love each and every one of you. We thank you for being here. We appreciate it. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, please, Joe at the Road to Concord. I do read your emails and I will answer. And if you send me something that doesn't need to be answered by me, I will send it to either Charlie or Natasha to be answered. But one of us will get back to you. So until the next time, y'all stay safe and take care, and we will see you then. Oh, real quick, Marianne, Charlie did okay. He's just having trouble getting out from under the effects of the anesthesia. It's still lingering. It's not leaving his system as quickly as it should have. So he's at home resting right now. We'll see y'all later. Shabbat shalom. Bye-bye.